My name's Sean Hodkin. I'm a professional tennis player from Scunthorpe, and this is my journey. My dream is to make it to the top 250 players in the world. My goal is to show you what it takes. Coming up today, I got the unreal opportunity to train at Wimbledon, tested out the latest offering from Wilson and Roger Federer, and bought Ella a coffee to stop her having an EPB. This weekend, me and Ella were staying in the Travelodge Wimbledon. She comes to London to help me with the content. It's no secret that the first thing on the agenda would be breakfast. As I am on a little bit of a budget, and I do spend about 4 hours on court a day, I try and get as much decent food for my money as possible. So the £11 Premier Inn all-you-can-eat breakfast is a pretty good solution. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I eat clean the whole time, because it's just so hard to do that with the amount that I'm moving and the energy that I need. So that's why I will have a few cheats along the way. So I'll go for things like pancakes, toast, with honey, just to get that quick release energy stored up. And they also tasted pretty good as well. I've heard that this is something that quite a lot of athletes do in different sports. And of course, the breakfast wouldn't be complete without a coffee. I really feel like the coffee helps to keep me sharp. You've got to wait until my mouth's not full. Now, I wouldn't be able to do this without Ella. She's taken the time out to film, travels around with me, but it is very difficult keeping her focused on what we're actually here to do. I mean, it just baffles me that people watch this stuff. Right, enough of that. Time to head to the tennis. So I dropped my racket off at the stringer and then bought Ella a coffee to avoid a meltdown, aka an EPB, as she wouldn't drink the coffee at the Premier Inn, then picked up my racket from the stringer. I was actually pretty excited to see what this new RF was all about. But first, let's see what Ella thinks. What are your first thoughts on the racket?
I prefer it if the string matched the racket.
Oh, that's such
It feels like a steely
an
grey.
Ella thing to say.
Or whatever was in it yesterday or this morning was much nicer.
The black.
Yeah.
But that's not the string I use.
I know, but I don't like the string you use. It doesn't go with it.
After Ella's constructive thoughts on the RF, it was time to head to the All England Club. Even at Wimby, we're still on the grind on the Pro Stringer. Look at this. It's unbelievable. The facilities at Wimbledon are crazy. I was very lucky that a good friend and fellow player on the tour is a member and managed to get me in for the day to train. His name is Ben Jones, and he's currently ranked 725 in the world after winning his first pro title in Ireland. So not a bad practice partner for the day, really. I haven't won a pro title yet, and this is something that's really motivating me to train hard. So we started off with a little bit of drilling and then moved into some points. Now this was my first time playing with the new RF, and I'll be covering it in a lot more detail in a future video, but I was really impressed with this racket, and it was something that I wasn't expecting. For me, it's far more powerful than the RF97. It definitely has a larger sweet spot, but it still felt like it had that quality to the frame. So I had it strung up with my exact specs, which is head links tour in a 130 gauge, strung at £57, just so I could test it as accurately as possible compared to the RF97. So even though I string my rackets pretty tight, I still felt like this packed quite a punch, delivered quite a lot of spin. But the biggest difference that I could feel was the drop in weight meant the maneuverability was just so much more easy to handle. This is definitely far more user-friendly than the RF97. I'll be reviewing the racket in full in a later episode, but now let's get into some points. So with my 2-hour session done and a few free coffees, it was time to take Ella back to the station where she'd be heading back to Lincoln. I refueled on the way with a quick micronutrient-dense meal deal from Tesco. So after dropping Ella off, I still wasn't done with tennis for the day. I had one more 8 p.m. session at Clapham Common, then headed back to a friend's where I was staying, had potentially the worst bowl of pasta you'll ever see, then tried to get some rest before another full-on day of tennis at Wimbledon. I love playing here. I think there's something so magical about this place. It feels like you're breathing the air of champions. So at Wimbledon, there aren't just grass courts. They have hard courts, clay courts, which makes it a pretty perfect place to train. And as me and Ben are competing on hard courts at the minute, that's where we were training. Now, as you'd expect, the hard courts at Wimbledon are pretty sweet. They're a really good pace, not too quick, and they felt pretty brand new. So I had another great 2-hour session with Ben, and we basically just kept everything tuned up, worked on a little bit of rhythm from the back, a few cross-court balls, and then started to move into taking the ball a little bit earlier, moving forward to take on some volleys, and then we actually played a set. Ben ended up beating me 7-5, but I was really happy with the level of play. He is pretty tricky to play. He's 6'5", with a cannon of a serve, and usually the case for big servers is that they don't play too well from the back, but his ground strokes are pretty solid as well. So with the session done, it was time for a little bit of refueling. So I was lucky enough that Ben took me for lunch in the members area, which I'll admit was a slight upgrade to what I normally eat for lunch. Tesco meal deals. The coffee wasn't bad either. Now, as my signature dish is pesto pasta, I decided to see how good the Wimbledon edition was. To say it was marginally better than my own cooking would be an understatement. So after lunch, we were given a little tour. I honestly don't think I'll ever get bored of seeing centre court. I almost got the chance to hit on centre court at this year's Wimbledon, but unfortunately they don't allow non-members or non-players onto court, which is completely understandable. Can you guess out of this year's champions who I've played in singles? So there you have it, my 2 days training at Wimbledon. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I really appreciate your feedback, so feel free to drop some in the comments.